Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Fistful of Dice. My name is Matt, and this is session 14 of the Provokers Bleakwrath. Thank you for joining us this evening, for tuning in. We're going to do a brief recap of the last session and then jump right into the action. Last time on Provokers Bleakwrath, the Provokers woke aboard their leva ship, the Sable. All of them were wounded, and they were informed by Keenra that they had been unconscious for several days. They found Keenra on the deck of the ship along with Erdon performing dirty spaghetti surgery on Holly, removing the tip of the spear from her abdomen where Bronze Eyes left it in their last encounter. They spent some time recollecting their thoughts and trying to figure out what had happened in their battle with this Mitsurium construct. They were handily defeated, obviously, and must make preparations before the next time they face this fearsome foe. They spent some time aboard the Sable recovering from their wounds, talking with Keenra and with Erdon, and together they formed a plan to head to the northern reaches of Aeronoth, where Keenra believes, in the Dwarven Kingdom of Snarholm, the missing piece of the sphere is entombed with Aeras the Reclaimer, the founder of the Convocation. So they headed to Snarholm, and there they disembarked into a frigid, snowy mountain pass where they met a dwarf scout who captured all of our hearts and managed to bring the Provokers into the dwarven city of Snarholm. There they found this glorious city forged of molten stone, a place of hard and pragmatic people who fight a never-ending war against their duergar brethren across this bridge that spans their two peaks. They met with the leader of these dwarves, Karkarik, who wears this large stone gauntlet that sort of runs with these veins of magma, and she told them that the tomb of Aeras, the Vault of Aeras, was indeed in Snarholm, but it was under the control of the duergar of Svelbrig. And she basically said if the Provokers could manage to ward off the duergar and take back the vault for the dwarves of Snarholm, that she would allow them to take what they needed from the vault. So the Provokers set out and did battle with duergar on this bridge leading to the vault. The duergar were very much like dwarves, but hairless, with ice blue skin and these strange blood red eyes, blades made of this sort of crystalline, almost ice-like metal. The battle was fierce, but the Provokers prevailed, but not without great cost, as Kristoff, the druid, lost his nose in the climax of the battle. That was where we left the Provokers. Let's find out what happens next. We open to a familiar skyline. The city of Falhast. To the north, the black sands of Sonageist blow. To the south, the green of Gwynterod. But here, in the Dusk District, we find only ruined buildings, hollow shells. A arid wind blows in sand from Sonageist, covering everything in a black, glassy dust. The silence is broken by footfalls, and we see a low, hunched figure in a cloak moving through the alleyways, crawling at times, staying out of sight. This figure moves quietly and quickly, but still. They bump into a pair of boots. Holly, you're looking down at this figure, the crossbow in your hands. You can't see their face. What do you do? What do you say?
Make your introduction now, she says. A common phrase uttered to people in the Dusk District who don't belong or who the guard believes are potential threats.
The figure reaches up with shaking hands, and as they do so, you see that their hands are wrapped in cloth, likely to protect them from the sun. They reach up and pull back their hood, and you see a bald head, skin that is the blue of ice, and eyes crimson. These eyes look up at you, fearful, shaking, and this creature, humanoid though it is, something you've never seen before, they speak in an accent unfamiliar to you. Please, I just need passage into the city. Please.
She glances down a nearby alleyway and she sees two shadow figures move adjacent in the street, parallel to hers. They're in the middle of a sting. She can't tell in the moment who this person is, but she knows that they're not part of the target. In fact, she doesn't even know who's part of the target. She never knows who the target is. Sometimes she feels like she's just going through the motions, doing what she's been raised to do in the latter half of her life, instead of what she passionately wanted to do earlier on. I think she doesn't realize that she hates the Dusk District at this point in her life. She still thinks it's home, but she understands that it's not this person's home, that this person is far from home. She says, the rules say I have to kill you or bring you in. And she turns her crossbow and aims it and fires a bolt into a sack of cereals that begin pouring out. And she says, lucky I missed you.
For a moment, this creature doesn't understand. They look to the bolt and then back at you, almost expecting you to just load in another bolt and try again. And through this bewilderment, there's sort of this realization that dawns. And they say, I owe you everything. And disappear around the corner, never to be seen again. And as this vision fades, this vision of this blue-skinned creature, we flash forward to the present. Holly, you're a few years older, and you're standing over the corpse of one of these creatures. And the resemblance is uncanny, could be the cousin of that creature that you met that day, laying there on the bridge, its blood leaking out. You're standing there holding your crossbow, and Kristoff is hurt. Kristoff, what are you saying to Holly to snap her out of her reverie?
I would probably say something like, hey, my nose feels really cold. How bad is it?
How bad is it? Holly, She snaps out of it over after maybe the second or third time you ask, and she looks, and then she's immediately jarred out of this daze. I think she's going to try to conceal it, so she's going to try to roll deception, maybe against your insight.
Yeah,
Christoph?
I love it. That's fantastic. And I think at this point, it's not bleeding. It's this purple, bluish, frozen, like it's just because of how cold it is. And maybe there's like little snowflakes starting to like stick to it. All right. Ooh, not bad. So 13 on the die. I'm not really super insightful, but let's see. Oh, I lied to you. That's a 19. Yeah, +6 to my insight. So that's a 19 all up.
There's a moment. I rolled an 18. That's perfect. There's a moment through blurred vision where you can't see my face, but then right before she remedies it, you can see. It's almost like her face is a mirror of what you like. A reaction is of what you look like.
And so at first, I'm like, how bad is it? Just thinking it's gonna be cracked, broken, maybe at the bridge or whatever. And then when I see that look of what could be perceived as like nausea in your eyes just for half a second, I'm like, oh, no. And I start looking around. Matt, what would be the closest reflective surface or something that was even like a semblance of that?
The blade that cut your nose off your face.
Oh, take a point of inspiration, you monster.
I already have all of them.
And so I would go, and the blade is reflecting this building first, this whatever the door looks like, this awful dark place, and I slide it just to, and first I can only see my eyes, but I can see this red sort of tip, and I slowly, nervously slide the blade down as the entire heart shape of my missing nose appears. And I would immediately and I don't have anything in my stomach, and so I'm dry heaving, sort of and I just don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to act. I don't know how to respond. And then I start crawling around on all fours, looking for my nose.
You would find it. It's not really a nose anymore, so much as it's just flesh. A chunk of what once was your face.
And I think, as ridiculous as this sounds, and I just the way that, so just so you understand, I have a younger brother, and at the time he was like not too young. He was like 10, and he cut the tip of his finger off in a moving truck. One of the automatic things, and the responses of how people actually act when those kinds of things happen are always very, very surprising. And so I think, as stupid as this might sound, I would try to put it back as though that would work. And it's strange how I've seen this in real life, but I would sort of like, and then I would get frustrated with that. And in a fit of whatever feeling, this emotion of 10 different things at once and adrenaline, and I would throw my nose off the bridge. And then I'd be like, oh, no. Like, what? Like, what did I do? Like, and I'm just a mess. I'm a mess.
Try turning into try turning into something and then turning back.
Oh, okay. And then I flex my body to try to do it, and the only thing that happens is the thin layer of ice that was covering my nose like breaks, and it starts bleeding. Not gushing, but it starts bleeding. Just like, And then it's just sort of this, and then my fingers begin to elongate and then retract. My back begins to hunch and then it turns, and I can't even focus enough to actually turn into anything. And then I think I would probably just like sit in the snow.
Sander would come over and just kind of, he's standing back, giving you your space, but he just comes over and kneels, has his quarterstaff there and just kneels about 2 feet away from you. And he just kind of looks at you. And that's it.
And for the first moment that I'm not frantic, I turn away because I'm embarrassed. Like I feel like I look probably really freakish. And so I kind of, not all the way, but just enough. And I kind of, I don't know, I don't want to touch it. So I kind of, and then I look at you, Sander, and I just see this steadfastness that has brought us through so much. And then I look around. I see these corpses. I see these bodies of whatever they are, and these creatures that I've never seen before. And I start to look around. And then I look at Holly. I look at Edric. And then I look at this place that we're supposed to go into. And I go, you know what? I'm not dead. It could have been worse. And then I kind of look at the rest of my body, my fingers, my arms, my legs. It could have been worse. I'll be fine. Let's at least make it worth it though, right? Am I right? Like we can't fail now at this point. Because that would be just the worst thing, to lose your nose for literally no reason. So yeah.
Holly leans over to Edric and says, I think he's in the bargaining phase.
Who's he bargaining with? You think it's a devil?
Himself. Himself.
Oh. While this was going on, Edric, noticing Kristoff's state, I immediately set my pack down, go into my pack, find a clean, kind of laundered, the cleanest shirt that I would have, grab the sleeve and just tear the sleeve off, fashioning it into kind of a at least some type of a bandage. I would also pack it down in snow to get it really, really cold, because hopefully that might stop at least help slow down the bleeding. And then I would just take to him and just kind of try and wrap it around kind of in a diagonal pattern around his head, try and stop the bleeding that way. And say, I'm sorry, Mr. Kristoff, I don't have any healing potions or nothing, but maybe there's something we can find to help you out.
And this mask, it fits perfectly, and the ice is soothing to this open wound, and it sort of drapes like this. Like I've got this, go back to the 90s and remember when Grifter was an Image Comics hero, anti-hero, and I've got this sort of Grifter situation where I've got these rings under my eyes now from the bruising from where I've been hit, and then this sort of awesome bandana that Kristoff now has, that Edric placed on my face and tied around. And I imagine it was probably some sort of pale, faded red, And in the center, there's this stain of darker crimson ruby that sort of comes over it that makes this pattern on the front of it.
And I'll probably try and help him up. In the meantime, I'll look at the large door that we're kind of situated in front of. Is there any idea about how we're going to get that big thing open?
It seems very mysterious and it seems very complex when Holly first glances at it. So her eyes almost instinctively fall to Sander, who's experienced lots of exotic parts of the world and has gained information from everywhere. Maybe Sander has seen something like this.
And Sander would kind of look at you, Holly, and say, "No, I mean, I'm good at climbing, but no, I can't climb that."
And this is a door, like a gate.
It is.
You're muted.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
So this is a door
Yeah.
or a
This is-
gate. You're still muted.
What?
He wasn't saying anything.
What the heck?
He's just moving his lips.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
This is some dirty spaghetti happening right here.
it's because you're thinking about that 2-liter bottle of Coca-Cola.
I am. I'm working
It's
my way
dominating
through
your
it.
mind.
Making my way down, drinking.
You
this.
look
all
at
hopped
your,
up.
you like glance over. You glance over at your daughter, and she morphs in your mind into a 2-liter bottle
And a
of
2-liter
Coca-Cola.
bottle of Coke.
Every time he presses mute, he's actually pressing it about 17 times.
I'm getting silly. I don't give a freaking heck, dude.
God.
I'm gonna fall asleep. I'm gonna fall asleep last at this slumber party. Just watch.
Tim
Oh.
just reverse snorted whatever he's drinking.
I did. It's Sprite Zero. I'm no better. I've got
Oh.
this huge
Yeah.
thing full of it.
So I had people in the chat are like, we could hear you, Matt. It's because my mic was unmuted, but I was muted in the Zoom. But my audio is not coming from Zoom. It's coming directly from the microphone. So everyone could hear me, but you guys could. The people who matter, the people who need to hear me, couldn't hear me. So
The people who matter. Okay.
yeah, the people in the chat don't
Oh,
matter. The
right.
viewership.
Soundbite.
No, I love everybody. Matt Click hates his viewers. They don't matter. And that's I don't know. It's a political ad trying to.
Yeah.
It's
Opposition
a black and
research
white, black and white video.
Yeah. Matt Click drinks 2 liters of Coke.
You can see the pamphlets in the mail now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. It is a door. A large door made of stone. And as you approach it and inspect it, anyone, you see that it is standing slightly ajar.
Listen.
So Sander walks up and maybe it's just like very slight. And Sander just kind of goes to Holly, looking at Holly, sticks his quarterstaff into the door and just kind of like tries to pry a little bit more maybe and probably unsuccessful, but says, "Come over here and help."
That door better not start talking. Stone Rift Click.
It does not.
Holly
Okay.
comes over to try to help.
With if the door is heavy, but with both of you pushing on it, it kind of grinds open, and you can see that there are boot prints leading inside.
Chris, you have any idea what caused these? I don't know, or like if they're like looking at boot prints, if they're especially small boots or large boots,
Sure.
giant boots.
Matt, can I make would this be some sort of like nature situation or some
Survival.
dungeony or
Survival. If you
survival?
would.
Yep, absolutely.
No, give me dungeoneering. We're playing 4th edition, baby.
Let's do it, baby. I got it. All right, I got a 2 on my used rope. All right, so
It's
it's
been a
How about
while
your
since
used
we've made
boots
a
check?
used rope joke.
I know. You got to just get one in every session. It's all up. It's a 10. So not awful, but not really awesome.
It's hard to tell specifics because the snow has been falling pretty heavy and has obscured the prints, but based on the size of the duergar that you just fought and the boots that they're wearing, it seems like it's duergar that walked in here.
Okay. And I would just repeat that to Holly and everyone else. And I would point to the boots of the dead ones on the ground, probably specifically, and just say, look, if you see the patterns, yeah, this is definitely duergar. And you said it's pretty heavily trafficked, so I'm assuming it's some sort of guard duty or patrol or sentry
Yeah,
work.
seems like the duergar that you fought out here on the bridge were essentially like holding down the fort, and they had sent guys inside to check things out.
Makes sense. And so, excellent. So that's what I would guess, and I would tell them it was a guess. I would say what I'm guessing based on these patterns, and kind of relay that information.
Ollie's kind of looking around through the top of her crossbow, aiming it in locations. What room is this? How big is it? Is it shadowy? Is it dark? Are there things that we can see?
So you enter, and it is dark. There's light coming in from the doorway, but the door is only ajar, and so it's not enough to illuminate the entire room. But just in the shadow, you can kind of see that the room is large, hexagonal in shape, has kind of a domed ceiling supported by pillars that run along the walls. In the center of the room, there is a massive statue of a griffin that is sort of like rearing up with its talons, and as you kind of like sweep your crossbow across the room, you almost like loose a bolt into this thing because it's so lifelike. It's so intricately detailed and carved that it looks real, but then you see that it's just frozen in this sort of pose. You also see at the edge of the light that's leaking in that there are duergar corpses laying in here. Each of them is sort of laying in a pile of blood that is frozen, so they've been dead for some time. And that's as much as you can see without more light.
Sander would light a torch and maybe throw one kind of towards the griffin after realizing it's just a statue, and then probably light another one for his hand.
You light the torch and you toss it into the center of the room, and you can you illuminate the rest of it. You see that there are 5 dead duergar in here, all of them wearing similar gear to the ones that you battled on the bridge outside. Each of them looks like, you can tell pretty easily they were killed with bladed weapons. They're sort of like hacked into pieces. And like I said, the blood frozen beneath them. In addition to that, there are 2 suits of really nice looking armor that are just kind of laying in piles next to these corpses. There are 4 doors in addition to the ones that you just walked through. Each of them has writing above the door, which we can tackle one at a time. And you also notice, Sander, as you throw the torch in, that there are 4 symbols on the base of the griffin statue that correlate to symbols on the doors surrounding you.
You said 4 symbols along the edge of the griffin statue?
The base of the griffin statue, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And writing as well above each door.
Okay. And can I read the writing or no?
Yes, you can. The writing is in common. And starting from left to right around the radius of the room, the first door has a symbol of a sun upon it. And above the door is written, "Under Light of Mercy." And I'll put this all in the chat too. The second door has a symbol that look like wings, like a pair of wings sort of outstretched, and it says, "On Wings of Peace." The third door is a sword, and it says, "With steel of justice." And the fourth and final door has a like the head of a griffin on it, and it says, "In keeping of balance." And I will put that all in the chat for you.
Does anyone have experience with duergar ways, customs? And Matt, actually, I should clarify with you maybe, is this area, can we tell, like, I mean, it's in common, but does it look to be of duergar make? Or I can't remember the context of where we are really.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so it looks like it looks similar to the structures that you saw in Snarholm. So it's likely dwarven made. But even with like a passing knowledge of history, Sander, that this is devoted to the convocation and like the griffin and the symbols and stuff. And with Aeras entombed here, this was likely built by the dwarves for him. As he was entombed here, where he died here. So,
yeah. So I take back what I said about the duergar. I realized that after I said it, I was like, "Oh, it's definitely
definitely made by dwarves, but for Aeras specifically."
It's curious. Any ideas?
Well, maybe it's levels. Maybe it's, from the bottom to the top, right? This was built for someone really important. So maybe it's first the sword, because that's held in the hand, which is boots on the ground, and then the griffin, and then the wings, and then the sun, So maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know. Maybe it's, I don't know, levels.
Oh, damn. Matt just pulled out the convocation.
See, I thought he was just gonna leave and
low
just be
key
like,
though.
This will take them an hour. Now I can finish dinner.
I'm gonna go eat more spaghetti. No, I honestly
did think of the convocation, but Christoph would have no idea of that. So I wasn't going to say that as Tim, but I was like, I made those icons. I made that art.
Tim's like, I made that at 4 a.m.
I did. Remember. So I was like, then I was like, well, I want to say something as Christoph that would make sense as a puzzle that still could work.
And the convocation is like, even though it's kind of fallen out of favor and it's not as prevalent as it was, it's still like, it's like the Knights Templar. Like, even if you don't know the history of the Crusades, you're like, I know who the Knights Templar are. Like, I got it. I got the basic gist.
And that killer.
Yeah.
Do they have, do you think the iconography would be similar where, like, if you see a white tabard with a red cross, if you even like relatively know a little about history, you're like, oh, the Knights Templar.
Yeah, you would probably know that like there were various orders within the convocation that like saw to different like duties, and the image of the sun, it's like pretty closely related with this goddess called Helial, which is very like healing, and like a lot of like clerics and paladins in Aeronoth follow Helial and have that same very similar imagery on their armor and things like that.
So then I think what Christoph would say would probably be something like this. Hey, wait. When I was in the clerisy, we got a really hot tip on some stolen armor. And when we got there, it was a Convoker's armor. The Convocation. So I've learned a little bit about them because I needed to know how much this was worth. You know what I know about the Convocation? And I would look at Edric. Not much, but I think you might. Because weren't they chummy with the Provokers?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, at least I think so. there's lots of stories about them going round to help out, and maybe the convocation did help them at some point, giving them griffin mounts and helping ride them into battle and stuff. But I don't really know much about the convocation itself. Once there was a farmer in Aldemir who swears on all that is good that he did see a griffin riding in the sky, and there was someone perched atop its back. Don't know if it's true, but that's the closest I've ever got to convocation. I did hear they do a lot of great things.
As you say that, Holly is standing in front of the in keeping of balance door with her crossbow and her leg primed to kick it in as she's been trained. And she asks, are the convocation the type to punish people for trespassing? Before she does.
Well, I imagine no one wants someone to go in their house that they're not invited into.
Good enough for me. And she backs away.
And I mean, these duergar are all dead, and not by our hand, but by something else's hand. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't see and look at that nice armor just laying there and thinking it seems like some sort of a trap. I'm just wondering if there's some sort of a trap in here. Maybe if we open up the wrong one, I don't know, swords or something come shooting out the wall and take us out. But under light of mercy, you know, that sounds like maybe a way we should go. I mean, I've heard priests in the temples in Aldemir, they were muttering a few words like light of mercy and whatnot, just before they done healed some people. So, well, maybe, Mr. Kristoff, we can help you fix your little situation there, you know, sort of this shaped and sort of this place. Maybe there's something there that'll help.
I don't think he needs a fix, but perhaps.
Well, I think it would be a good idea. I mean, before you know it, you'll forget what a rose smells like, and that's not good.
At the same time Edric's talking, Holly is like, kind of like a Larry David.
And I think, too, that Kristoff's face would sort of warm to Sanders' comment that he doesn't need a fix. But then when Edric said he can't smell roses, there's a beat. And then quietly, he kind of like puts his hand over the mask and tries to smell to see if he still can. He's like, but it's so cold that it doesn't matter. And he doesn't know if he can smell or not because it's just that cold air rushing through, you know.
Well, Edric has a point. Mercy sounds nice. Nicer than justice. I mean, justice is good and all. It's just, as someone who sometimes has done some wrong things, it concerns me a little bit. I wonder...
Edric, Holly says, and she motions toward the door. Oh, no, Sander, you go ahead. My plan's probably terrible.
I wonder if they'll open or if we have to do something for them to open. But I think it might be worth a shot with the mercy.
Edric, you want to try to open up the under light of mercy? She motions toward the door across the room. I'll cover you from
that's the one with the
30
sun,
feet
right?
away.
That's with the sun. Okay. All right. And so I'll walk over to the sun symbol door. And Is there like a knob, or is it a latch, or is it just a push? Is it a pull?
As you push on the door, it kind of slides forward and then slides into the wall. There's a short corridor, and you see a room open beyond.
I'll look back. It seems okay. And I'll just kind of... I'll actually grab the torch that Sander first threw in and say, I'll lead the way. And I'll kind of duck in a bit. I imagine it's not terribly tall, but as I am terribly tall, kind of squeeze in and start moving forward.
You step into a rectangular room, the far wall, the opposite wall of which is adorned with this this really elaborate engraving of the sun and its rays kind of shining out, and the rays actually cover the entire wall. Like they kind of like hit the edge of one wall and then go along and then meet at the door. So you're sort of walking in the apex of all these sun's rays, sort of meeting on the opposite side of the room. And there are three things in this room. The first and probably most noticeable is a large statue of a humanoid figure. Getting closer, you can see that the statue is depicting an elven man in armor, very similar to the armor piled out in the entrance hall. The elven man has this kind of like calm, serene expression on his face, and he's holding his hand aloft. You can see that there's a sword sheath at his hip, and at the base of the statue is a name etched into it, Galarion, Galrion. The second thing you notice is a dead duergar laying on the ground, holding what appears to be a glass vial. That duergar got the glass vial from the third thing you notice, a wall adorned with shelves upon which rest hundreds of glass vials, each with a label.
I'm laughing to myself that it's like, hey, remember that time that I said that Edric can't really read?
Funny enough, as you enter, Edric, as you sort of step into the threshold and take all of this in, a voice speaks out, and it catches you by surprise because it's not a voice you recognize, but it seems to emanate from the stone itself as you step in. For wounds festering, a poultice to make. Only what you need are you permitted to take.
Hello. My name is Edric Meadows. My friend, we sort of got his nose sort of cut off. Do you have anything to, I don't know, regrow a new one or maybe stick the old one back on?
For wounds festering, a poultice to make. Only what you need are you permitted to take.
Right. Okay. Good talk. And I'll. Did anyone else follow me, or was it just me? Was it just like, like kind of a?
Actually left. They're back in Snarholm.
Oh, they did.
I did not. I did not follow you.
I would say Sander probably would have.
Yeah, we got your back.
Do you know what kind of a poultice this stone voice is talking about?
Matt, do the vials all look the same?
They're all like a similar size, but each one has a label on it, and you can see the contents inside. If you approach the shelf, Sander, are you going to do that?
Yeah, sure. I'll take, maybe I would probably first actually take a closer look at the one that the duergar is clutching, and then maybe look up at the others to see, are they the same?
Holly seems like a person who would move a little close to the shelf if that does anything.
So, hang on, sorry. I'm using this magical ingredients generator, and some of the stuff it comes up with is so stupid.
Is there an example?
I want the erectile dysfunction juice, please.
Just there was one that was like, it was like jelly of plasma from a leopard. Like it was like just like spit out words. Some of them are really good, but occasionally you get a real dud.
Jelly of plasma from a leopard.
Jelly of plasma.
Yes.
Jelly of plasma.
Plasma
I'm like,
within
okay,
plasma
whoever
interlinked.
programmed this generator wasn't thinking. The glass vial on the ground, and you're able to see the label without touching it, says obsidian dust. And the ones on the shelf are all different. They all have different labels.
Jelly of plasma from a leopard is the literal translation in another language of deaf leopard pour some sugar on. This is my favorite song.
I love it. The plasma
Jelly
of the
plasma
leopard.
from the leopard. Pour it.
That remind there nothing. I'll wait for intermission. Did moving close to the shelf do anything? She's like kind of scanning everything.
It didn't, but go ahead and give me a perception check, if you would, both Sander and Holly.
I have a character sheet somewhere. There we go. I got a 14.
14?
Watch out. Big 8 coming right at you. What do I not see?
So, Sander, you kind of are scanning over these labels, and you actually recognize one of them. A lot of these are you've never heard of before, or you don't know the properties of, but scanning the shelf, you find a bottle. Something significant to you. Something maybe you've used before, maybe you found before, maybe it's something native to Sonageist. What is it that you find here on the shelf that you recognize?
Are they all liquids, Matt?
They're liquids. There's some dried stuff. Like there's like glass vials with little dried bits in it. There's like bones, just all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine they are actually some dried what look like almost like needles. And they are actually spine from a very particular cacti.
Ooh.
In Sonageist. Just a small kind of like bulbous, those kind that are low to the ground, sort of cactus. And I recognize these. They're very particular because they actually have a little bit of like, it's a traditional kind of like off-white, but then they have a little bit of purplish toward the base.
Mm. And if I can add on to that, I think that you're familiar with this because they have some sort of antiseptic qualities where if you get a cut or a gash out in Sonageist to keep it from getting infected, you can actually use these needles and extract some of the liquid inside of them in order to sort of create this sort of antiseptic.
Yeah. So Sander would probably relay this to the companions. This one here, I recognize this, and it does have some healing properties, sort of. I don't want to die, but should we try it? It seems like we are in need, as the voice said.
Well, if we can only take what we're allowed to take out, I guess we have to mix all of our ingredients here. I guess I don't know, maybe maybe there's an empty vial we could just mix everything into. I don't exactly have a mortar and pestle with me.
Edric, you're tall enough. You notice the outstretched hand of this statue is sort of like cupped, almost like it has sort of like a bowl in it.
Well, I mean, now how tall is this statue? Like, can I, is this one of those like I can mix it like this?
Yeah, it's like it's
okay.
to scale, so it's like it's a 6 foot tall elf that's standing on like a pedestal, so it's probably about your height, Edric.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, I suppose we can mix it with this, and let's see what we got. Oh, I know. And I'll pull out a dagger that I have, and I can use the round pommel here, and kind of just mix it all up.
All right. Yes, excellent. And Sander, without hesitating, takes the vial off the shelf.
You take it, and nothing happens.
And I hand it to Edric.
Edric dies on the spot. I'm just kidding. Nothing happens.
Done. Let me introduce you to my new character, Bledrick. He's a human fighter who loves the Provokers, except he uses a rapier.
He's in the other room that we haven't gone in yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, conveniently.
Yep.
I'll probably look at Sander. How much should I use?
Well, probably like half of it, and perhaps we should here. And Sander, there we go. What's my character's name again? Hands you his water
What's
skin.
my name again?
Xander, he's so hot right now.
And asks you to pour a little water. Pour a little of this in to help make a sort of a poultice.
I don't know what that is exactly. Is that like a paste?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Pretty much.
So yeah, I'll sprinkle as much of a half as I would be able to see in the ice cold, like dark, dim room that I'm trying to pour into an outstretched hand to do some alchemy and stuff. Pour a little bit of water in. Yeah, I'll start grinding it up with the pommel of my dagger, trying to make a paste. Is there something else we need to add to it, though?
Yeah, as you do that, Edric, Holly, as you're kind of like further like inspecting the shelf, just like reading all of these labels that are most of them just utter nonsense, you notice that one of the 4 rays of sunlight coming off of this sun has started to kind of like glow, like it kind of has taken on this sort of silvery light to it.
Friends, I'm way out of my depth. And she motions toward this ray, pointing it out to everybody. Did you do something, Edric?
No.
I think we might have one of the ingredients right.
Great. I guess we could keep looking.
Sander would mention or would holler to Christoph, Christoph, you're going to need to come in here eventually. Come on.
And Christoph would look around, sort of like looking at the doors, looking back outside, not having a good feeling about all of them being in one room that has no exit down a narrow murder corridor. But he would sigh and he would straighten the mask and he would walk down the corridor slowly, but he would continue to look behind him.
The duergar are dead. Don't worry about it. Come.
Yeah, I mean, those are dead, but what are in the other rooms? This is like a murder hole if we all get stuck in here, but I'll make Edric go first. And I come into the room and I would imagine Matt is it like a door ring at a convenience store where like anytime someone new comes in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like for wounds festering.
Yeah. You're like, I got it. Yeah.
I'm like, can someone hit A? Like,
yeah.
But it talks and
it's the operator of the escape room, like trying desperately to give you hints.
You had it before. It just didn't. The magnet didn't work. You had it. Just put it back. So I would though say, what in the world? What's going on here?
We're making something to help your,
What? Aren't we trying to get out or in or? Listen, don't worry about my nose.
Okay. Or we could worry about your nose and only take like 4 or 5 minutes just to do something and fix up your,
Okay. And Kristoff would swear he heard something behind him, even if he didn't. And then I would just look at Holly to kind of just see like, where's your head at in this? Or if you're cool with it, I'm down with doing this. But if you're not, we need to get out of here and stop playing with fart powder.
She says, I'm starting to think that we don't have a choice. But she looks down the hallway towards the other door opposite. Maybe it's with Steel of Justice. And she considers going over there to try that door as well. She says, we could split up and cover more ground a little bit faster. And hey, listen, I don't think we have a choice, like I said. And you might actually fix your face. It's called the face, Edric.
It's still bleeding, too.
Hey, sounds like a party to me. I say we split.
She kind of looks for confirmation from everyone before kind of jogging off to the with Steel of Justice door.
Who's going with Holly, if anyone?
Definitely
no one.
Kristoff. Oh, no.
I'm just kidding.
No. It's like, whoa,
Kristoff,
what?
come on.
Everyone take a door.
Everyone take a door. I'm like,
Seriously.
Pump the party.
It's what the Provokers would do.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah, we would go there.
Cool. So Holly and Kristoff, you head towards that door.
I do. Just for the viewers, when you're rewatching this, I want you to rewind this maybe 10 or 12 seconds. Matt, in the meta, had a smile way too big for this to be any kind of good idea for us as players.
Yeah.
It was glee like I haven't seen in a long time. So I'm just saying, if you're watching this, rewind it and tell me I'm wrong.
It's not my birthday.
So, Holly and Kristoff, you head towards the door with the sword on it, correct?
Yes.
I think, yeah.
And we're going to Rainbow Six breach and clear.
Okay.
Yeah, we are.
Sounds
I'm going to
good.
I have
flashbangs.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have create bonfire, so I can just be like,
yeah,
boom, there's a fire roaring in the middle of the room. Clear up, clear down.
So you head to this door. You push it open. It opens very similar to the sun door, sort of, and then slides into the wall. Again, a short corridor, and then a room on the other side. This room, however, is spherical. It's sort of circular, and it has this sort of sphere dome over the top of it. And on the far side of the room, there's another statue. This one of a dwarf who is wearing this sort of heavy-plated armor and this massive sword that he's kind of resting his gauntleted fists on the pommel of, and it's sort of resting blade tip down. And as you enter, you hear another voice. Of all the trials you face, the wind is only ever your enemy. And Christoph, you're a little bit more attuned to things that are natural.
Sure.
The wind has kind of picked up outside. You can hear it kind of howling through the front door.
Yeah.
There's kind of like dust that's like spiraling up off the ground.
And I would feel a chill as it carried the cold air in quickly.
I think Holly's going to run to the door in order to put something against it so it doesn't slam shut.
Smart.
What do you put there?
My nose.
And please give me a
I have a
dexterity
crowbar.
check,
I
if you
pull
will.
a
crowbar. Give me a
Okay, I
dexterity
pull
check.
Yep. Got it.
Thank God for the Dungeoneers pack. Am I right?
13. Okay, I have an inspiration, I think, from the last time for some reason that's on my character sheet.
Mm-hmm.
I realize I'm not going to make it. So Holly dives with this crowbar to jam it in, and I'm using my inspiration to take advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was worse. The crowbar comes flying out of my hand, I guess. Crap.
As both of you sort of realize that the wind is picking up, and Holly, you turn and dive to put the crowbar into the door, the wind sort of slams it shut. It comes sliding out and slams shut, and the wind in the room continues to howl, spiraling at the center of the room, and then it takes a kind of shape. It's hard to fully discern because it's kind of made out of like snow and dust and whatever sort of debris is in the room. But there's this kind of humanoid shape that sort of forms in the center of the room. And there's almost like this sort of darkness where eyes would be. I need you both to please roll initiative.
Oh, man. Okay. Okay. How cavalier I was.
While you're doing that, while you're rolling initiative, Edric and Christoph, you're like...
Edric and Sander, you mean?
Edric and Sander, you're in the other room making potions and just having just the best time. And you hear the wind pick up and then like thunderous sort of slam as one of the doors slides close out in the main room.
Mr. Sander, did you pass wind?
That sounded heavier to me than
Sander goes, no, mine are quiet.
you. Yes.
Oh, maybe I passed wind.
We better hurry that direction. And Sander runs out to see if Holly or Christoph are around.
You don't see either of them, but you do see like the dust settling near the door with the sword on it.
Edric, don't steal the potion or spill the potion, but or steal it for that matter. The poultice. Come over here, and he runs over to the door and yells, "Christoph!" and kind of boom boom pounds on it.
I also think that you'd find the crowbar at your feet.
Yes,
that
there is a
Holly
crowbar
lost.
laying there, and it's almost like it's kind of like bent a little bit from where the door sort of slammed and knocked it out.
Yeah, and when it's kind of tracking
It
back,
found
you know,
return to return to Holly Rast.
the and so, you know, as it's cutting back and forth from scene to scene, you see like as all of that happened with this figure forming, Holly, I'm not even looking behind me. I hear the door close. I hear her grunt and maybe curse under her breath quietly. And then I just say, yeah, that tracks. And then moments later, I hear Sander, and he's, you know, he calls my name, and I'm like, Sandy, we did something real stupid. There's a wind monster in here, and I am not in fighting shape.
Okay, Sanders picks up. Would I be able to hear him, Matt?
You
The door?
just hear.
All right,
And
yeah,
like,
Sander. That's so perfect. You're too good at that crap, man. All right. Every noise. All right. So anyway, Sander picks up the bent crowbar and starts like railing on it and probably says, Edric, step on this. And he like kind of steps back, puts it in a place where Edric can maybe step on it to like pry it open.
Oop. All right. Yeah, I go in and do I remember how which way the door moved, right?
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Okay, and it's like the right way that if I heaved on it, it's gonna move the right.
It'll slide, yeah, into the sort of alcove of the wall, yeah.
Well then, let us do that strength stuff. Yeah. So would it be a strength check to just kind of move the...
So it'll be athletics, and you will actually have advantage because you're using the crowbar.
Acceptable. Which is good. Oh, there we go. That is a 14.
We will find out if that's enough after these messages. We cut back to the room. What did you guys get on initiative?
Hey, remember when I was supposed to roll initiative?
I see, Barker, you got a 7.
I'll take
No.
time.
Yeah, please do. I rolled an 11, but I forgot to
got a
add
7.
13.
Are you good now?
Thank you.
So, Christoph, you get to go first.
Okay. So the first thing that I do is I would put 2 hands on my own chest and I would say, and you'd hear this sort of, and you see this sort of greenish light come over me as I cast healing word on myself. Guess who forgot that they had 1 hit point from getting up outside, having dropped to nothing? So I cast healing word on myself. First thing.
And you didn't want my poultice.
You turned your nose up at the needles.
I turned my what up?
Too soon, click.
You
Son of a
turned
bitch.
your concave hole.
I'm so sorry. Hashtag too soon.
Okay, so all right, it's better than 1. So after that too, I will take I will step back and I'll kind of get behind Holly because I'm not feeling great. I probably have still some cuts, some wound. Like I'm actually feeling that as the adrenaline, as the blood starts flowing, I feel all the wounds that happened not an hour ago.
I can't do anything because I'm
Yeah.
initiative 7. Oh, yeah.
That's all, Christoph? Your
Your
spell and movement?
I will. Is it? Can I take the defensive stance or no? Is that an
No,
action?
not on the same turn as a spell.
Okay, then that's all. I move as far away as I can toward the door, and that's the end of me. I mean, that's the end of my turn.
That's the end of me. The wind in the room. What's up?
Sorry. Sorry to be a jerk, but
No.
healing word is a bonus action, so I'm not sure if.
Oh, so you can, if you want to, take the what is it called? Parry action or dodge? It's called dodge. Thank you, Nate.
Nate, is there a video series that I can go watch to learn more about Dungeons and Dragons?
Where would I go if I wanted to learn how to play this game?
You seem to know quite a bit.
Funny you should ask. Hi, I'm Nate Vanderzee. You
really
may
good at
remember me
Googling
from such
things.
YouTube channels as WASD20. So, Tim, you can take the dodge action if you want. I believe that gives you a +5 to your armor class.
Let's see.
I usually have my DM screen, but I rearranged
I think it
my
just
office.
gives anyone disadvantage on attacks against you.
Thank you, Nate. Where's my DM screen?
I have
The
the
hell?
old one that doesn't actually have the actions.
Oh yeah.
I need to get that new one. It's only like $10
right now. That's so irritating.
I just want to say again to anyone watching, see how much fun we've had, and do you see the cool story we're telling? And it doesn't matter that we don't know this one rule at all. The rules really are just not as much of a front and center thing for us.
Yeah.
And so that's okay for your table too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. The wind.
You're right. It's disadvantage. Sorry, it is disadvantage.
Cool. The wind overtakes you both. You are in the midst of this just cyclone, and you feel bits of rocks and dust just whipping at you. I need both of you to please give me a strength saving throw.
Oh, thank God. It's a 15. I thought it was a 5.
That is a 19.
19? Okay. Both of you manage to keep your footing, though the wind buffeting you is enough to slide you back from where you stand. You both take 3 bludgeoning damage just from the force of these winds whipping at you and the debris that it's kicked up.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Kristoff is down.
What? Are you serious?
Roll on the critical hit table.
One hit
Roll on the
point
critical
plus
hit
2 from
Listen.
healing word.
I did. I rolled. I only had a
What's
first
your
level-
wisdom modifier, neighbor?
Well, I had a first level I had a first level spell,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
And I only had healing word as a first level spell. It's 1d4 plus 3. I rolled a 1 plus 3, so I had 4 hit points.
So you're down to 1, right?
You're down to 1. Oh.
Oh. Yes.
Because you started
I'm sorry.
with 1.
I didn't count the one that I started with.
There you go. See, that's the
Thank
the
God.
difference.
Okay, I was like, oh man. Okay, that makes.
Whew,
way more
thank
sense.
God. Still got a hit point. Oh, all right.
So Kristoff's
good.
looking,
We're
Everything's
looking
gonna be
great.
fine.
Kristoff's looking pretty bad.
Okay. Holly, you are up.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I suppose 3 out of the 3 people in this room. That does make sense. I don't know about the surprise. Holly. Okay, Holly's gonna immediately, instinctively, as the wind just kind of batters her, and like you said, the debris that's in here that's whipped up, she holds up her arm to smack it away, and then she brings forward a crossbow and fires it through this wind elemental or whatever it is. Does it do anything?
You got to roll and tell me.
Okay. Oh, sweet. That was a really good roll. That was an 18
God.
plus 6 attack bonus. That's a 24.
Oh yes.
So go ahead and roll me damage for your crossbow, and also remind me, because you're an arcane archer, are your attacks magical?
So yes, the answer is yes, but it's once per turn when I fire a magic arrow. And actually, I just realized just now it's Only from a short bow or long bow.
No.
Currently crossbow bolts
Remember,
aren't
you and I
approved.
had a conversation where I said you can do it with a crossbow. We basically homebrewed
Okay,
it.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I
You're
can't
like,
wait till I get a
"Guys."
repeater crossbow and I'm just launching ICBM to people.
Yep.
Plasma pistol.
I am
So,
so happy that you rolled that high and that I am not dead.
yeah, right. 2d6 force damage plus my regular damage if I'm succeeding.
Okay. You are.
Nice.
Describe it. It looks like as you kill the.
As you kill the wind.
You
I attack the breeze.
wish, Mr. Stormraven.
I wish as the truest statement of the night. I don't want to die, Matt. And I
I
don't
have
want to
9,
lose my
10
eyes.
total damage because I do not add my dexterity modifier to my damage. 10. And it bursts with force, so I imagine it like poof, and the wind kind of bursts into a circle for a moment before coalescing.
There's
again.
this sphere of almost like a depth charge going off in the water where all of a sudden all of this air is displaced and it creates this sphere of vacuum, and then it sort of bursts outward, and you kind of hear the wind like kind of like groan as this happens, and like you realize like I heard the wind, like I did something. We cut back to outside of the door. Edric, you put all of your considerable body mass behind this crowbar, and it sort of opens up the door, slides open, and immediately wind just comes rushing out at you and sort of like blows you backwards a few steps, almost like opening up something that like in a vacuum, like it's just this wind just rushing out at you, debris as well. And you see Holly and Kristoff sort of like huddled together, and you see Holly like shooting a crossbow at nothing, just like shooting into the air. And Kristoff is just like huddled on the ground, just trying to catch his breath as you see this. Go ahead, and Kristoff and I'm sorry, why do I keep saying Kristoff for everybody? Everybody is Kristoff tonight.
Y'all gonna die.
It's a music
Y'all
video.
Yeah.
Can I be Kristoff but with a nose and more hit points?
Yes, you can be.
Great. Okay.
Edric and Sander,
Tim
go ahead and
I think
roll.
Tim just remembered that you roll your hit die.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm asking the chat if when we leveled up, I could get to roll my hit die, but I don't think it's an automatic. What I looked at in the rules,
so I think you gain
Every
the
time.
HP then. Yeah.
do you? Because that
Yes.
would be
Yeah.
just tasty.
Yeah.
Like
That
I
gives
messed
you
up
what?
and gone to max, and that's not the way to do it. But you
Yeah.
should be able to add your.
You would at
new, I
least
think.
add the hit points that you
Point
gain
one,
from
ain't it?
leveling
That's
up.
phenomenal. That's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Okay, killer.
So that's got to be what, 3-4 extra XP?
We're gonna roll this D8 and see, but please continue.
Edric and Sander, please roll initiative so I can slot you into this order.
I got 11.
11. Okay.
I got 21 in it.
21. Okay. So it's going to be Edric. It's going to be Kristoff. It's going to be Sander. It's going to be the wind. It's going to be Holly. So Edric, you are up first. You see this room, spherical, dome ceiling, probably about 30 feet wide. And you see this like vaguely humanoid shape taking form within this like cycloning wind inside the chamber.
All right. Well, I will go into the room and I will first try and help Kristoff in any way I can. I imagine, I don't know if I'm sure Sander has the poultice, or at least whatever we started making.
Well,
I
I think you left it in the room.
Yeah.
Well, dag nabbit.
Sander did yell back at you, "Don't drop it" or something, but I don't know if you actually had it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't really have anything to put it in.
Yeah.
So there is
Pocket.
that.
You just pour it.
So
in
the
your
riddle
pocket.
did say,
It's like here's a pocket of slime. Just
Holding it in my mouth for you.
I can't tell if that's from someone who clearly has never dipped or someone who clearly has.
Or who has kids.
Done a lot of things, but I've never done that.
Nice.
I've done a lot of things, but I've never done that, says old man Nate Vanderzee. Seen a lot of things.
Let me tell you.
Nothing quite like that, though.
Oh my god. All right, so Edric, what are you gonna do, buddy?
I guess I'll just try and protect both of them from the humanoid shape. Like I won't attack the humanoid shape, but I'm just gonna kind of maybe even like, yeah, just kind of back up, kind of put myself between them and I don't know, Windy McWinderson.
Okay.
But definitely develop a defensive posture. So
Okay.
if he tries to attack, I get to attack him. It's like
Cool.
a hold
So-
action.
Ready action. You got it. You rush forward. You put yourself between Holly, Kristoff, and this figure in the wind. That brings us to Kristoff. What are you going to do on your turn here? The wind is sort of towering over you, but you have Holly in front of you, and you hear the door open behind you, and Edric comes hurtling in and puts himself between you and the wind.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah. So feeling a little better with that healing word, and then sort of narratively accounting for the level increase would be, seeing all this occur and steeling myself and realizing like having that sort of grit and, like I said, like tightening the mask sort of, and just getting that extra action movie few hit points. I'm actually going to do the opposite of what I was doing just a moment ago, and remembering myself, I'm going to attempt to. I am going to. You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to. I'm going to chuck a dagger at this thing. And so kind of grabbing this, I'm going to, because I have a much, much better chance to hit with that right now than any other stuff I'm carrying.
Which dagger are you throwing?
So, I have this really nice +1 dagger.
Mm-hmm.
I think stupidly I'm going to grab it from my hip and chuck it at this thing out of reflex. And as it leaves my hand, I realize that it's the feeling that you like watch the door close as you lock your keys in your car. Like I just, like
I wish I could go
action
back.
movie.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Just half a second action movie. Like I tighten the mask and it's all like drapey and cool. And and oh, that's great. That's a 22.
Hits. Give me damage.
Yep. Nice. That's an 8.
Nice. And magical damage as well.
Yes.
The dagger flies straight and true, and it sort of follows up on Holly's bolt previously. The knife cuts through, and you see it sort of disrupt the form of the wind as it cuts through, almost like it's tattering cloth as it flies through, and you hear it kind of clatter into the room on the other side of this elemental, and again the of the wind as the knife cuts through it. Anything else on your turn, Kristoff?
So is it continuing to like spin around in this thing, the knife now, or
so it's actually this figure has kind of stopped cycloning and is kind of just this like figure now.
Okay.
So as you throw the knife through, it does pass clean through the figure and land on the other side.
Perfect. Okay. Yep. So then I'm done.
Okay. That brings us to Sander.
I am going to perhaps very foolishly run up to it, and I just kind of brush past my friends and is it high, Matt, or is it like ground level?
It's ground level. It's sort of like it's so tall, this figure, that it's almost kind of like crouching. You can see it sort of like crouching down as it sort of hits the domed ceiling of this room.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to run up to it, and I am going to attack with my quarterstaff, swinging out at it. And here we go. I now get 2 attacks at level 5.
Ooh, yeah. Level 5,
Cool.
baby. 2 attacks for fighters, monks, paladins, I believe, at level 5. No, rangers? I don't know.
All right, so the first one is a 10 to hit.
Not gonna cut the mustard, son.
And the second one is a 24 to hit.
That will cut the mustard.
And then I will also make an unarmed... Well, first, I guess I'll roll my damage. And that is a 6 on the die, which is nice. Oh, wait. I was supposed to roll a... Well, anyway, I was supposed to roll a D8, apparently. But I'm just going to maybe keep my D6, if that's okay.
That's fine with me.
Okay, because I rolled 6.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to be 9 damage.
You would absolutely roll a 1 or a 2 on that 8 if you rolled
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
So that's a 9 bludgeoning damage. And what can I... Okay, so I think on a hit, I can empower my strike with ki.
To make it magical.
Yes. You can spend key points. Okay, so where did that thing go? Sorry, guys.
You're fine.
New abilities here. Okay, when you hit with a melee attack, you can spend 1 key point to make the target stunned until the end of your next turn. If it fails a con saving throw, DC 14. All right, so I'm going to spend a key point to do that.
Okay.
So,
con saving throw?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, I rolled a 14 on the die, baby. It makes it.
All right. And then I will also, I think I can still do my unarmed strike as a bonus action, right? Even though I make 2 attacks now?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So that's going to be, oh man. Nope, it didn't actually do it. Come on, D&D Beyond. Do it. Do the thing. Okay, yeah, no, that's a 2 on the die.
Okay, and then you did 9 damage previously, correct?
9 damage, yes. So I imagine my unarmed strike, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think if I miss the stunning thing, then it's non-magical. I don't know. It's kind of tricky. I just actually was doing some Googling during while it was not my turn. And, it says here, monks harness the power within themselves to create magical effects and exceed their body's physical capabilities. And some of their special attacks can hinder the flow of ki. I can't remember where I found it. Never mind. Let's just say no. I'm intrigued. I want to look. It is a magical energy. But
oh shoot.
I know at level 6. Yeah, but that's like on all my attacks. That's the thing.
Oh, gotcha. Not ones that empowered by ki, but all attacks.
I think so. Unarmed strikes count as magical weapons when I hit level 6.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, let's just go with no for now, and maybe I'll keep Googling it for next.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. That's good to know. At level 6, though, you get magic.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading arcane archers at level 7 can choose to make all of their attacks magical damage if they want, which is pretty dope. Okay, Sander, anything else on your turn?
No, that is it.
All right. The wind rears up, and it sort of forms 2 huge arms out of just tunnels of air and sort of slams them down, attacking Edric and Sander being the 2 closest targets. First one coming at Edric is going to be 18 on the die.
Question
plus
for
8.
that.
So 26 to hit.
Question for that. Now, because I held my action,
You get to go.
do I get to go before him though? Like, I don't know.
Interrupt it.
Does
Yep.
it? Oh,
Yep.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I am keeping that roll, though, 26, so say your prayers
yeah.
on your turn.
That's fine. It's fine.
I'm ready in action to meet my maker.
I've got 2 hit points left. I'm good. Whatevs. All right, so this is gonna be fun because hey, at least if I do die, I will have like attacked someone first. So, all right, so gonna make first attack. Oh, that's all right. That's a 23 to hit.
That hits.
Okay, dealing 6 points of damage, slashing. Also gonna take a. Give me a second here. Yes. I'll save the bonus attack actually for the end, but I'll attack again because of that 2 attack goodness. And that's a 17 to hit.
That hits.
Cool. And I'm actually going to use a maneuver, and it'll be. Will it be? No, you know what? I can't really use a maneuver. I can't trip it. Can't disarm it, and it's not a riposte. So, yeah. So it'll just be.
Can't disarm the wind.
You can't you know what? Accurate. Scarily accurate. All right, so damage. Oh, big money. 14 points of slashing damage.
Okay.
And finally, I can use my bonus attack, which is just a little kind of strike down and then kind of come up with the kind of like weight at the bottom to provide a balance and just kind of hit it in the jaw.
Hit it in the sternocleidomastoid.
Right in the cumulus.
Ow, my nimbus.
Oh, and that's a 24 to hit.
That'll hit.
However, but it's only going to be for 7 points of bludgeoning damage.
All right. So, for those keeping track at home, that's 25 points of damage, non-magical. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not very much. Look, we're screwed, okay? But, at least we went down swinging.
Don't forget, Edric, that you also are carrying that spear on your back. It is now...
Oh, dang,
turn.
spear.
So, the wind rolled a 26 against you, Edric, which I believe hits.
It does.
Handily. It's going to be 7, 12, 17 bludgeoning damage. As this fist just slams down. Second attack coming at you, Sander. That is a nat 1 on the die. So what does it look like as you deftly, masterfully dodge this fist as it comes down on top of you, Sander?
Mm-hmm. So I imagine I kind of actually launch myself at the wall if I'm near a wall, and the fist comes down, and Sander kind of just jumps off the wall and actually jumps over the fist. So
Awesome.
Out of the way and then back over the fist on the other side, poised to strike again.
I'll actually, because of the crit miss on the nat 1, I'll allow you to have basically a free attack, like an opportunity attack against it as you flip over this arm that has come down.
Sweet. Okay, so yeah, I just kind of, as I'm flying back over it, jab my quarterstaff down and keep everyone in suspense for a while. Ooh, that's a 12 to hit.
Does not hit. So you swipe at it, but you just through the air. Holly, you are up. You have Edric and Sander in front of you now, between you and the this wind. It's a wind it's an air elemental. Just everyone knows what it is. And you see one of the fists come down and just sort of engulf Edric. This just sort of, and Sander goes flipping over one of the arms to land on the other side. What would you like to do on your turn?
She's actually shoved back maybe a meter just by the power of the fist. Like if she slides back on the concrete floor, the stone floor, and she with concrete. She raises her crossbow again, and she breathes, focusing. And there's some whispering words that she doesn't speak, but that she breathes out and she hears. And the second and final bursting shot is ignited into this crossbow bolt, and she fires it off.
Awesome.
12. No. 14.
14 is not enough to hit.
It fires too high as the fist comes down, and the crossbow bolt actually starts spinning because of the wind of the fist. She cranks and lowers again and loads another bolt and fires a standard bolt at it because she has an extra attack.
Awesome.
That is a grand total of 25. That's a 19 plus 6.
That'll hit. That'll do. That'll cut the mustard, as is the thing that I've never said before, and I've said 3 times in as many minutes.
All right, we'll tell that mustard it's taken 9 damage from this cut.
Damn, that's some spicy brown mustard. That's my new catchphrase. Go to mattclick.com to get the new That's Some Spicy Brown Mustard t-shirts and mug cozies.
This ain't no Great Groupon. What?
Mug cozies.
Now available, this ain't no Grey Poupon t-shirts and mug cozies. How much damage did you do, Barker?
I did 9 damage, and I want to know what that does before we move on.
Is it magical damage?
Nope.
Okay. It does very little, but it does a little bit.
Okay. I'm going to take an action surge.
Okay.
There's something in Holly's pocket. And she flashes back to that spot in the dust district. As she reaches down at what the duergar had left in their wake. And she reaches up, she pulls it from the earth. It's this strange key that they must drop. Pockets it, but she puts her hand in her pocket. She has that key. But she pulls out, what she pulls out of her pocket is something different. It's a stone owl that she had received earlier on in this venture. A nimbus, something that would guide her and her companions if ever lost. And with her action surge, she holds it up. And I forget if there were some words. It's been a long time. She says, Tyrannosaurus, and
Spicy brown mustard.
She holds up.
And it goes,
mustard.
I think she's more of a honey mustard person, just because I am, and I dig some honey mustard on some nuggets. Anyway, she holds the nimbus up and activates it. Again, I'm forgetting what it does. It saves us, right? It saves us.
We all ride on the wind.
You hold the nimbus up, and a owl takes form before you. It's huge. It's not a regular size owl. It's a giant owl. And the stat block I just sent you, Barker, is the giant owl. And you can describe what Nimbus looks like as it sort of takes shape before you.
The Nimbus is a massive white snowy owl, but one wing and a whole side of its body is this absolutely onyx, like obsidian black, and it extends upward into its face. And so you see it kind of dyed part of the beak, but specifically it's kind of got different colored eyes. The one on the darker side of its feathers has this bright jarring white eye in that socket, and it begins just flying almost haphazardly around this circular chamber. Should I roll initiative for it?
It'll go on your initiative.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and it'll last for up to 8 hours. It can't be used again until 2 days have passed, and you can telepathically communicate with it as long as it's on the same plane of existence. It's a figurine of wondrous power.
I think it says something to her.
What does it say?
And it's, I don't know, I'm going to ask you. It's something, it's got to be something familiar, like it might be the spirit of an ancestor or something. She wonders what soul resides in this thing. What sort of, I don't know, what haiku does it give her? What simple phrase as life is breathed into this stone owl, what does she hear?
She hears this whisper in her mind, sort of pleasant and familiar, though not, you can't place it. But
Dude, Stadium brand or GTFO?
Oh my god. Put it on the dirty spaghetti. That's some spicy brown mustard. The owl says, the wind is not your enemy.
Dope. Liar, but dope.
Yeah. Like, I'm literally fighting the wind right now, but thank you. Oh my god.
And that's her
Spicy
turn.
Brown mustard. Okay. Actually, the owl can attack right now. Can do a thing. You're muted, Barks.
God, who does that? Using their talons, they'll scrape at the wind. Nice. That is I think that's +3, right? Yep. So 21 total.
21 total hits.
To hit. And 2d6 +1 slashing damage. Oh, they're both of them cockeyed. 6 + 1 is 7 damage. I don't know if that's magical.
It is not, but it still does some damage.
Nice.
Awesome. Back at the top of the initiative, Edric, you are engulfed in this this appendage of wind that comes slamming down on top of you, and you hear nothing. It's just whistling in your ears, this wind just buffeting, and you almost find it hard to breathe, almost like the wind has displaced all of the air around you. And then the fist is sort of rising back up to strike again, and you can breathe once more, and the sound returns, and you look up and you see this gigantic owl that is like sort of soaring around the circumference of the room. What do you want to do on your turn?
Really quick, when I came in, what else did I see in the room? Was it just literally an empty room
There
with a
is
dome?
a statue on the far side of the room depicting a dwarf in heavy plate armor, and he's resting his fists on a massive sword. You can see that there's writing at the base of the statue, but it's too far away to see.
All right, well, other than I just know what's attacking me, unfortunately, I do not know what the stats are on that spear. So
It's a +2 spear that deals 1d6 additional fire damage on a hit.
cool. So I will drop my poleaxe and kind of pull out this spear, and I'll make a few smacks with this thing.
Get in the smacks.
I will get in the smack. Let's see what we got here.
Cutting the
Actions.
mustard.
Smacks were my favorite cereal for a long time.
Sugar smacks?
Yeah,
Oh,
sugar
damn.
smacks.
I want a hot
Old
dog and
school.
some sugar smacks, baby.
I dig
Take me on a date, Barker.
In
Take me
on
to
a
some
bu-
hot dog and some sugar smacks.
Take me on a date. The sugar smacks are dessert.
Carnival.
Thank you for coming. I've prepared hot dogs and sugar smacks.
Oh,
Shame.
Optional is almond milk.
What'd you roll?
due to the,
Oh, nice.
it was probably a natural 20.
Yeah, baby.
That's my kind of guy. It's
Crit
probably
damage,
a 20.
Crit damage with a enchanted fire spear.
Whew,
mean-
it's at least a 20.
So let's see. So it'll be, what is that? So 2d6. Because one for the spear, one for the
One
fire.
for the spear and one for the fire, correct.
All right. Wow. Okay. I'm okay with that. God, I love D&D Beyond tonight. So I rolled. We'll call it 6 piercing and 5 fire.
And that's adding in the +2 from the weapon, yeah?
It is now. So let's see. So 13.
13 total.
13, and then plus. I guess have proficiency in that. Would have proficiency.
Well, you wouldn't
in
add
spear?
proficiency to damage. You would add your strength.
Right. That's what I meant to say, which is a 4. So it's 17 points
17.
of damage.
Damn.
I love this spear. Because
You
it's a
like-
good thing.
You look at your poleaxe and just throw it, and you're just like,
Yeah.
No, friendship ended with poleaxe. Now spear is my best friend.
The big question is though, because I rolled a nat 20, is there added damage to that or no?
Yeah, it's double damage, Mike. I thought you were factoring
Cool.
that in.
I did not. No.
Holy crap.
So yeah, okay, cool.
Okay,
Cool.
so not
34?
17, but in fact 34. Okay, cool.
34 points.
I was gonna say, I was like, that
Like,
seems
hey, wait a
it
minute.
could be higher for a crit, but
Yeah.
17's good. I mean,
You're
don't
like-
get me wrong.
Listen, I'm not saying I don't want 17 damage.
But so yeah.
It's a little bit
So
level 3. We're
Y'all
kinda
making me get the
level 5 now.
calculator out here. Yeah, exactly.
all right, and then it's 23 to hit. No, 21 to hit. 23 to
Attacking
hit.
again? God, how many attacks do you
right?
have, Mike?
I got like 2. It's insane.
Okay, 25
And-
to hit hits. Yep.
And I'm not. It wasn't even going to be a dick and do the old second. There's a second wind. No, not second wind. It's,
Action surge.
Action surge. You know. But I'm not going to do that.
The fire of this spear, by the way, is just like it just like flares. It's like every time you hit with it, and every time it does, the fire like drinks in all of the air around it, and it creates this like suction on the air elemental, and it sort of like is like taking chunks out of it.
That's so hot. And for damage, it's another 11 points of damage.
11. Okay.
Yeah, this is definitely an upgrade. Like I'll be straight with all of you. Like this is
It's insane. You've been carrying that spear around for like 4 sessions, and I'm like, hey, don't forget that you have it.
Yeah, right. It's only because I don't have it in my equipment because I didn't know what kind of a spear. Like
Yeah.
you know, like
It's
Yeah.
like when you find a cool gun that you forgot you picked up in Borderlands, and you're like, oh, why aren't I using this?
oh, stop calling me out like that. And anyway, so that would be all of that. Now, because I think a spear is not considered a polearm, so it can't use the polearm master bonus attack. So, I'm actually going to use second wind.
Action surge.
Which no, I'm actually going to use second wind.
Okay.
Because I'm
some
kind of
health
hurt. Yep.
Spicy spear. Unibrowser. Unibrowse Sheep Z says in the chat, spicy spear.
Yes, I like to call it the the Grand Habanero.
And Matt, for a second, it sounded like you were activating a sleeper agent.
Spicy spear, Unibrowser Z.
I'm like, oh,
Tim is the Winter Soldier.
I am. I'm more of a summer soldier.
I'm more of the guy from Naked Gun 33 1/3 that's trying to kill the Queen of England at a baseball game.
I love you, Barker.
Anyway, that ends my turn.
Okay, all right. That brings us to Kristoff.
So at this point, what I'm trying to do here is seeing. Okay, so I am going to use a spell, and having seen, this spear blazing and sort of, I realize, wait. And so I am going to create bonfire right under this thing. So it basically, I create a bonfire where I can see, and until the spell ends, it fills that 5-foot cube, and I'm doing it directly under the creature. And then it, like, if the creature is in the bonfire space, when I cast the spell, which is now, it has to do a dex save immediately.
Okay.
And then it has to make the saving throw when it moves into, like, the space for the first time, or it ends its turn there.
Cool. What's the DC on the save?
That is going to be for you, it is a dex 14.
It does not make it.
Okay. So it is going to take, oh, that's tasty, 7 fire damage, which is magical. Oh, wait. Yes. Yeah. We're level 5. This spell's damage increases by 1d8 when you reach 5th level.
Give me some more.
Yes, another 7.
So
That is 14.
go ahead and describe to me what it looks like as you kill this air elemental, Kristoff.
So as the winds are blowing everything in the room, and as Edric is hammering on this thing, you start to see pieces of its form begin to dissipate and not reform. I imagine as we've been fighting this thing, every time we hit it, it was as though we were clutching through fog or swinging a sword through thick smoke, and it would, but then it would reform. And as Edric is hitting, parts of it are starting to reform, but withering and leaving empty gaps. And then I see that. And for half a second, I'm back at home. I'm way too young. And my brother and I shouldn't be, but we're playing with fireworks. And as we're sort of hidden away, sort of like, not supposed to be doing something, my brother looks away for half a second. And in my infancy of not even knowing what druidic powers really were, I accidentally lit one of these fireworks off. And so it started, and so I turned, and without thinking, I threw it at him. And he caught it, and he goes, "What did you, huh?" And then he throws it, and then our father, who finds us in the woods playing with these fireworks, steps in casts a shield of protection around us, and then casts a bonfire that engulfs all of the fireworks before they can explode, capturing that energy. And in that moment, probably for the first time, my father didn't yell at us, and we weren't in trouble. And he said, Did you start that fire, Christo? And we both look at each other, like me and my brother, like, what? And then my brother gives me the nod, like, say yes. Yeah. Very well, then. Clean this up. And it's best your mother doesn't find out. And he turns and walks away. And I remember that moment because it was the first time that I made a flame. And then I remembered that it was the connection that I have with my father. And it lets me make this powerful, surging bonfire that looked just like the one that he made. And it engulfs this air elemental like it did those fireworks. And unceremoniously, it's gone. And a fire crackles softly in silence in the center of the room.
That's where we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a few minutes here. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in tonight. It's been a great session so far, and we've still got a little bit here to go. So please stick around. We will be back shortly, and see you in a bit. If I can find my OBS window. There it is.
Hey, it's your boy, Rule Breaker. I'm here for all of you Halloweeners and to break rules. I got, you know what I got over here? I got hair clippers with the guard off. Trick or treat? Nope. It's hair or treat, you bald spot kids. Plus, my cousin Chuck beat his arson rap. So fires is gonna happen on them stoops. Halloween, porch scorch. You can't tell me, I'm rule breaking. You can't tell me what to do. Candy don't expire. Legend of Halloween 99. This gray Snickers is a feast. It tastes like milk-laden egg. Rule break.
We're gonna be lighting fires on them stoops.
should probably unmute myself before I decide to come back from the break.
Nah, man.
Doing the robot. Hey, everybody, we're back. Real quick before we roll back into the session, I want to make sure that I bring this up. We're going to be kickstarting another book here soon. It's called Mecha Hack Mission Manual, and I just want to get everybody hyped up for it nice and early. We don't have an exact date for when it's going to happen because we want to make sure that we get our Dead Man's Guide books shipping from the printer before we do another Kickstarter. But we're finishing writing this week, and it's a really awesome book. There's going to be 30 missions in it for Mecha Hack, all written by awesome people. A lot of us here at Absolute Tabletop, but also a bunch of people in the Absolute Tabletop community and the greater tabletop RPG community. So definitely keep an eye out for that. We'll of course put posts out and stuff when it goes live. But if you're into the Mecha Hack, if that's a system you enjoy, just know that there is more content coming from it soon. So definitely keep an eye out for that. We're very excited about it. So I also just ate 3 Snickers, and I'm drinking more Coke, so I don't give a freaking heck. Let's do this. The fire in the middle of the room is crackling sort of pleasantly. And as the air elemental died, there was this rush of wind as it sort of dissipated. And there's this sudden stillness, this sudden calm that overtakes the room. And as this happens, the statue at the far end of the room begins to glow softly, and there's this hum as it does so. What are you all doing as the air elemental dies and this happens?
Holly is finally coming to terms with the owl that's been manifested before her for the second time. And one thing that she's wondering is how many creatures like that are stored in this nimbus? What is it made of? The last time she used this, the owl was mechanical, a massive golden mechanical owl. And now it's this new, almost hybrid species. And she just approaches the owl and begins having kind of a moment with it, like a telepathic understanding, as she kind of brushes its feathers, and she's going to spend her time doing that.
Yeah, it comes to land beside you, Holly, and the size of this thing, it's as it lands, it's not as tall as you are, but it's certainly taller than any owl you've ever seen. Likely not large enough to ride, but almost that big. And it comes and sort of nestles up beside you and just kind of sticks close. And it doesn't speak words to you, though you did hear a sort of strange whisper when it first was summoned. But your telepathic link, you mostly get sort of like emotions and feelings from it. These sort of like very sort of base things. But you feel like trust and almost a familial bond with this creature, even though you know so very little about it.
She thanks it without speaking and looks to everyone else and the statue.
Sander would turn to Kristoff and with concern say, "You don't look so good, Kristoff. I think you need to sit down. Here, have some water." And he hands you a water skin.
Yeah, I'm really thirsty. I didn't realize it because it's so cold. And I would drink it up and yeah, I might actually. You know what? And I sort of slump down in front of the fire, sort of warm my hands a little bit, and maybe even lean a little on my elbow and just say, yeah. I might just take a minute to sit down.
I wonder if we could take a short rest. I don't remember if I have any hit die left, but I think we haven't taken a short rest yet.
Yeah, no, you haven't. So you can
haven't.
absolutely do a short rest if you wish. Use some of those hit dice, get some hit points back. Action surges, you fighters.
You fighters with your surges. It's just soda. You get action surges. They're orange.
You know
instead of
Burger
green.
King has surge.
No.
Burger King in
Seriously?
this area has surge. Yeah, you can get
No.
Yeah, you can get surge at Burger King.
You said in this area, and I thought you said Burger King's in Syria, and I was like,
You're like,
what?
Okay, thank you for that
Okay.
information. I guess next
Yeah.
time I'm in Syria, I will go to Burger King and get a surge.
Yeah. Like
I
that's
don't even
as
know what
useful-
surge is. What is
Oh, Mike, surge was the pop you were not allowed to drink in the
Surge is more
90s
than
when
a
you were a
soda.
kid because it was so caffeinated.
Surge is the childhood.
Yeah.
Surge is the back of the school bus.
It's very
Yes.
much Mountain Dew if Mountain Dew had like 3 times the caffeine.
Surge is flipping the swing all the way around on the swing
Yes.
set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
It was basically a competitor to Mountain Dew, like
Yeah.
on purpose. It was Coke's Mountain Dew, basically.
It was
So
it
they
was,
made
and
it
was amazing.
extra. It was an energy drink before energy drinks were mainstream.
Yeah.
Holly
yeah.
cracks one open.
Yep.
Action surge. Tankian. Uh-oh.
So short rest, you're able to regain hit points, and you already have this fire sitting here, so you all are able to kind of gather around and warm yourselves. And this statue, you can see now the name on it, Rennick, written underneath it, and this dwarf wearing this armor very similar to the armor you see out in piles in the entrance chamber, and this massive sword, and this very like almost not friendly, but there's like an openness to his face that you don't expect just from his stature, the armor that he's wearing, the weapon that he's carrying. You can see this face that is just kind of friendly and welcoming.
Did you ever finish the? She looks to Sander. Maybe nods at some stains on your hand of the chemicals and the materials that you were working with, the potion or the whatever it was you were putting together.
Poultice, yes.
Poultice.
Edric, do you have it?
No. I think I may have left it on the statue in the.
Xander
Oh,
speeds
yeah.
off without you finishing your sentence.
Probably.
Sander, as you run through the entrance chamber towards the other room, you see on the base of the griffin statue, the symbol of the sword is glowing.
I'm sorry, where you said I see that? Sorry.
Yes, as you're running through the entrance chamber, you can see, as you're sort of like passing by the statue, you see that the sword symbol is glowing on the base of the griffin statue.
Okay. I would probably actually turn back as I've kind of split here and say, Christoph, you should come in here just to be safe. I don't want to take it out of the chamber. And I head over toward the statue.
And I would like get up that like you've been sitting on the floor too long watching TV. You forgot how long and so and then I stumble in there and looking a little better, definitely, but certainly not my normal fighting self.
So yeah, I would probably have to kind of climb up this statue and in the chamber with all the vials and just kind of scoop some of this poultice in my hand and like motion for Christoph to come near and say, this has some measure of healing properties. I don't know what it can do for you, but You could try rubbing it on the wound. It can't hurt.
You're muted, Tim.
Okay, yeah. Wait. Did you just make this in here? Did Edric make this? You wanted me to rub this on my face?
It is something we use in Sonageist. They're the needles of a certain cactus, and they can be made into a kind of a poultice that
Okay.
has some healing properties.
Okay. That makes me feel better because I thought you were saying you literally found some stuff on the shelf and wanted me to rub it on my face. But if you know what this is, I trust you, Sandy.
Yes, of course. I'm pretty sure I have it right.
And you say that as I'm rubbing it on my nose. And my eyes just sort of widen for a second. Like, Matt, I rub this on my nose. I don't know what happens.
It's kind of this sharp, tingling pain that happens. It's very like wincing sort of thing, but it's that kind of burn where you know, like, oh, this is killing any sort of bacteria in here as you rub it on, and then it kind of dulls the pain a little bit. I mean, obviously it still hurts. Your nose has been lopped off your face, but it certainly helps, and it gives you a measure of confidence knowing that you're not going to get some sort of gnarly infection in your skull.
And as it, I would say too, clean wounds somehow look more unnatural in ways sometimes. Because with the absence of blood, you just see that anatomy, that raw, open face. And so probably no more bleeding, but this pink sort of hollow cavity, very skeletal. But as you say, it's the redness, the swelling. I can already feel it start to sort of go down, and I just sort of tie the bandana back on. It's now the crimson on the lower half of my face. And
Sandra, you do see when you go in the room and grab the poultice out of the hands of the statue, you do see that that carving of the sun on the wall, one ray is glowing and the three others are still dim on the wall.
Christoph, does this mean we need to take something more?
I think so. The rays seem to be correlated with our progress. Perhaps we have to venture into the other rooms.
And Matt, is this ray the one that lit up when I took the vial off the shelf?
It's when you put the needles in the statue's hand, it lit up.
Oh, okay. And so there was one that was, and now there's two. Is that what you said?
Just the one.
Okay, there's still just the one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't quite know what to make of this.
Can we put other things in the statue's hand, or would that be detrimental?
It said to take only what we need.
Okay.
I mean,
What else do we need?
I haven't had a good BM in a few days. I mean, see. Sandra looks up on the... Oh, sorry.
And I would say weirdly, Christoph would be like, oh, buddy, hold on. And I would start actually scrolling because in the clerisy, you don't get to eat a lot of variety of food. And so it basically, that's a real problem when you have a limited diet, you know? And so like Christoph's like, yeah, hold on. And Matt, would I actually find anything?
What what ingredient, what substance from the Ravenstorm Highlands would immediately jump out at you as you sort of scan these labels that are otherwise nonsense to you?
Ooh, boom, snake root.
Snake root, tell me about it.
Yeah, so snake root is just this gnarly stuff. It's like almost like tastes like peppermint, but if you crush it, it breaks into these oils, and the oil itself is very almost like spicy and hot to the touch. But if you mix that oil with some sort of carrier oil, it can basically dilute it enough to where it doesn't burn your tongue or isn't too antiseptic. But what you can do is you can rub it topically on the outside of your stomach, or you can ingest it, and both will it does wonders for your internal workings, just everything. It makes everything work a little better, but it is just really like peppermint spicy times 10 if you don't dilute it with a carrier oil.
That sticks out to you immediately as you scan these shelves, and it's likely something you haven't seen since you left the Ravenstorm Highlands, but you see it sitting there on the shelf.
Yeah, and I would take it and I would say, pretty much all the things I was like, Sandy, listen, we've all been there, man. This right here pulls out the cork. And who would have a carrier oil? I'm looking around like I need oil, some sort of oil, something he can ingest. It can be anything. It can be oil from Verglas olives. It can be whatever. I just need something. Does anybody have anything?
So here's a funny thing, because I didn't know what to take. Excuse me. When I took my Battle Master bit, I did take cook's utensils because it just seemed like the right thing to do in a little place like that. So I imagine that I would have a very small bit of like tiny amounts of spice, maybe enough for like one meal before I'd have to go get some more, possibly even a tiny bit of olive oil or a few other of the smallest garnishes, but like just in a very, very small dosage.
Oh, that's perfect.
That I mean, that might be a stretch, Matt. I don't know.
I think that works.
Okay, cool. Even though I'm in the other room, magically, through the power of friendship.
Well, through the power of, I was going to say, through the power of Christoph being loud and obnoxious.
About my inner workings.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, snake root, this will be great. And I did yell. I actually called out, who has some oil?
Oh, okay, cool.
So, yeah, it's not.
I'm
like
sure.
it's like,
I'm sure the other room probably would have reverberated off enough stone.
oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So-
I'll swing back in to the healing room, which is clearly the best room, not the sword room, which is the bad room. BT dubs, and kind of open up, and I kind of open up this like folded kind of leather pouch, and you see kind of like a couple of like small skinning knives and like cooking utensils, and like a couple of maybe 2-pronged like forks, and then like a little bit of like these small little tiny jars, like just so tiny, and they're all like little, like almost like bullets in a bandolier, kind of all rolled up. And so I was like, right there it is. Well, I have linseed oil, which it sounds like it'd be bad for cooking, but it's actually quite good. I also have olives. This one is from corn.
Oh,
So which one would be good?
what does linseed taste like?
Well, it tastes pretty bad. You just have to mix it into something like spicy, very spicy to kind of, curtail the bitterness, but it's very bitter.
That might not be bad. Okay, Sandy, check this out. And so I take this linseed oil and, I am trying not to touch this snake root as I am like crushing it up. Oh, I grabbed my dagger, by the way, while we were in there resting.
Good call.
Good. Yeah,
2 sessions, you go, my dagger.
I know. I'm like, no, I diced
left it in the vault.
I diced it. I was going to say, don't pull it down. I diced it.
I diced it. Oh, God. That staff, it's still out there somewhere.
It is. And so I'm crushing it with the pommel. And you can smell it. It's a lot like peppermint, but if you mixed peppermint with like crushed red pepper. And so what I do is I scoop it back up. It takes all of the linseed oil, but I'm able to make enough of this by crushing it up, and I put it back into the linseed oil vial so that theoretically, and I just say, Sandy, you're going to have to take half of this and rub it on your stomach, and then take the other half and drink it. And it's going to burn and it's going to be gross, but things will get great again soon.
I will do this. Yes, thank you. And he takes it and he does the belly and he puts a little in his mouth and immediately it's going to do something.
Yeah, I drank all your water. I drank all your water too. I'm so sorry. When you gave me some, I was just so thirsty and it was so cold.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, hopefully this will have some effect. And I feel immediately you would hear a little like belly rumble.
It begins.
A little precursor.
So it begins.
And Christoph, sorry, I may have missed this. Did you do this in the palm of the statue?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I actually didn't. I didn't say that, but that was my intention.
So, 2 more rays sort of start glowing as you do that. There's 1 left dim.
Okay. So, all right. So you're telling me you mixed something that you recognize, Sander, and now I just mixed something that I recognized. So, and then I look to Holly and Edric, and I would say, did either of you recognize anything?
Oh, I didn't really look at anything.
Check the shelves. Let's check the shelves.
Oh, all right.
Just for anything you recognize, because I recognized the snake root right away, and Sandy was talking about this cactus that I rubbed on my nose.
Well, you make it sound painful when you say it that way.
Well, it was.
Well, he's better a poultice than a suppository.
That's true.
Well,
pick something that tastes better than this, maybe. But anyway.
Edric, as you're looking through the shelves, you see one labeled linseed oil.
Oh. Well, that's good. Linseed oil is really good. It's made with flax, but you see what you have to do is you can take it. Doesn't well, it sits in your gut, but it helps, as you can tell, flush everything out. I'm very sorry, Mr.
Sanders like running out of the room. It's happening.
And I already took my short rest.
Well, we're going to need a long rest. We're going to stay here. Stay close to this place.
Holly, are you back in this room?
Yeah. I think the nimbus, the owl, is scouting the other doors we haven't gone through, and Holly is back in this room. I feel she was maybe summoned there. she didn't see anything on the elf that jumped out at her. She was close to her. She was
Yeah,
looking at stuff.
when you initially came in here, you made a perception roll and didn't notice anything. The nimbus completes sort of walking around, and it comes in and it sort of nudges you and then like bumps one of the vials with its head, and then like kind of looks to you and does that owl thing where it like cocks its head way too far to one side. What is the name on that bottle that it bumps? How do you know the word on the label?
I know the word from stories that people who would come visit our home in Talmor, people who knew Aaron Ellington in the army, people who would visit would always exchange these various stories, and some were simple, mundane, some were disgusting, some were funny, and every once in a while she'd get one of her favorites, which is a story about another world. And that's where she heard about this plant. It's a vial of there's a ground plant inside it, and on the outside of the vial it says Mania Orchid.
This sticks out to you, and it just like triggers these memories in your mind, and the owl is looking to the vial and then looking to you.
She reaches out and picks it up. All she knows about it is that it causes extreme, according, you know what? Let me roll a die here to see, because she would have been young and they would have been tall tales. What she knows about the Mania Orchid is that it was in the story that was told, it was a famed ritual substance of some dwarven people in another world. Almost like a spiritual thing.
Mm-hmm. And as you pick it up, take it off the shelf, again, nothing happens.
She looks at everyone else. Do I say, is there a password?
No, you just put it in the statue's hand and you do it. I mean, what does that do? What's the?
Oh, the
It
statue.
says only take what you need. So what does that do? What do you need?
I don't really know. And she puts it in the cupped hand of the statue.
Oh, okay. Looks
The
harmless. I mean.
Finishes grounding it up, maybe.
the fourth and final ray coming out of the sun. The statue itself begins to glow and hum. And from the hand, there's a light that emits. And as the light fades, there is a glass vial filled with this shimmering blue liquid. And the statue is sort of holding it out.
And she takes it immediately back and examines it and tilts it on its side. She has no idea what to do with it, but she puts it in a pouch on her side.
Outside in the main room, the sun symbol on the griffin statue glows.
Matt, is there a way to get sort of an update on all that is currently glowing? Like kind of like the state of things, of what is there?
Absolutely. So, in the sword room, the statue there is glowing, and the sword symbol on the griffin is glowing.
Okay.
In the sun room, the statue is glowing, and the sun symbol on the griffin statue is glowing.
2 to go.
Yeah.
Which room do you head to next? The wings room or the griffin room?
Holly shakes her head and closes her mouth and doesn't say anything. She got everyone in trouble the last time.
Seems we have to visit them all. I don't know if it matters. The order.
The wing room had the word peace in it. Peace sounds nice because it's not fighting nothing. Why don't we just give that a shot?
I like that. I think that's really smart.
Sounds great. And
Peace.
I think Sander might walk forward to the door.
You do so, and pushing on it, it pushes forward and slides open like all of the other doors. And inside you find a square-shaped room. And there are 3 statues in this one. The one on the left depicts this angelic figure holding their hands out, cupped before them. The statue on the right depicts a fiendish figure with these sort of curving horns, again, holding its hands out, cupped before it. And in the center of the room stands a statue very similar to the dwarf and the elf in the other one. This one, a human woman. She is, again, armored, but lighter than the others. And instead of a sword, she carries this spear. And at the base of her statue is written the name Damaris. There is also a well in this room, sort of long shaft, and you can see that there's liquid at the bottom of it and a ladle set beside it. And as you enter the room, another voice. I was always told in diplomacy, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And as those words sound out, and I give you a month to mull them over, we're going to end the session with a bit of an aside. We see the mountain pass. On one side, the mountain of Snarholm, on the other, the mountain of Svelbrig. The camera pans over drifts of snow, pristine white. And then blood. It's soaking the snow. The snow is turning crimson with it. And we pan up and we see duergar. Dozens. All of them dead. There's one sort of held aloft in the air, and there's a blade sticking out of his chest. And as he dies, the blade slides off, and behind him stands an elf of Haldrathine. She flicks the blood off of her Mizurium blade and allows it to meld back into her armor. Her mouth is fused shut. Her head is bald. She scans her surroundings and sees before her a bridge leading to a door. The vault, Iskandar told her. There you will find what he needs. She cracks her neck and begins walking toward the vault. And that is where we're going to end our session for tonight.
The click spash. The click
man.
spash.
So we discussed it during the break, during the intermission. This is going to turn into a Vault of Aeras Part 3. This is going to be a 3-parter, a real next generation finale situation, if you will. And we're going to be playing that next month. So I'm going to let these guys do their sign-offs, and we'll see you all again next month. Thank you, as always, for watching. We'll start with the gentleman down below me here. Hey, Barker. Hey, do you want to give your sign-off?
Thanks. Yeah, here, hand it to me.
Here you go, buddy. Here you go.
Thanks.
Hey,
Perfect.
I'm going to be having a party this weekend, so it's going to be loud, and I apologize. Up here, I'm your upstairs neighbor.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's cool. No, you're on the top bunk of a bunk bed.
You have a bunk bed.
Yep. So my name is Barker. That's what we're doing here. My name is Barker, and I play Holly. Yeah, that was the Click Spesh, and this whole game was really awesome. It felt like I love the role play centric games that we get, and having a cool puzzle like this, revisiting the Convocation is really dope. The flashback that you had, Tim, with you and your brother was incredible. Everyone did really well, and I actually drew up a picture on this cool hex paper of the vault as I kind of imagined it, and I posted it on my patreon.com/inspire the story for public, so you can check it out. And I want to see if that's even remotely close, and you can see my chicken scratch, but mostly I want you to just look at this cool tablet of paper that I have with the hex grid, and I use it every Mecha Hack game, and now it's going to be a regular feature in the Provokers.
Ooh, awesome.
Really excited for the next time. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, Mike, little kitty corner situation down here. Go ahead, my friend.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike. I play Edric Meadows, and you know, hey, I love asides, don't you? We all love asides. If you know I don't love asides, asides is gonna make me clench my sphincter from now until November. Okay, a person can't clench her sphincter for an entire month. However, we're just gonna have to see how this works, because you know we're all in full pucker mode now, because you know T1000's coming for us. You know,
Just take some snake root.
yeah, and meanwhile we're bumbling around. Yeah, exactly. We're bumbling around, trying to figure stuff out. So yeah, but you know what? It was an amazing session, phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal. Love the role playing. It is so inspirational to sit here. That's why I just keep the mute on. It's like I got a front row seat, and sometimes I say things. So it's fantastic. So of course, big, huge, massive thank you to the creative genius behind the Provokers, Matt, and of course to all of you, my fellow players, who are wonderful, and all of you in the audience who are watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We're lucky to have you with us. All right, way down there, Nate. Can you hear me, my friend?
I can hear you.
I started this with Barker, and I have to do it with everybody.
There it is.
I'm over here. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good.
Cool. Do you want to do your sign off now?
That's perfect.
I do.
Okay, cool.
My name is Nate. I am playing Sander Denara, and this has been a great pleasure. It's the first time that I have ever taken a BM in a D&D game, even if it was a bit of a fade to black situation.
That's one of my lines and veils. Yeah, my veil is I don't want pooping in the game.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So yeah, that was great. And I also, yeah, it's just great to be back playing this on a regular basis. And thank you so much, Matt. Love the puzzly, symbol-y things. So cool. Just love it. And yeah, I have a YouTube channel called WASD20. And we're going to be running a live campaign every other Monday. We're doing session 3 this coming Monday. It's Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maidens. You can check it out on my new channel, WASD20 Live.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check it out. It has been a really fun campaign so far. And someone in the chat pointed out, Nate, you did not accidentally mute yourself once during this session. I did it like 19 times, so...
Amazing.
Yeah.
But y'all had to put up with me like clacking on my keyboard and going into the microphone here and there. But, you know, it's the price we pay.
Hey, Nate, I don't think Tim can hear me. Can you just poke him and let him know that it's sign-off time?
Sure. Yeah, let me see what I can do here. Just give him a little bite with this little guy here. Tim, it's your sign up time, buddy.
I don't know what just bit me. That was weird. I left the window open for like 3 minutes.
So gremlins coming in here.
I know. I think it was a boglin, actually. It's TM. I am Tim, and I am part of Tabletop Terrors, and I'm also part of Absolute Tabletop. And I got a new chair, so I'm sitting too far away. It's really comfortable, but I got to figure out a better mic situation, and I'm sorry that you couldn't hear me a lot of the time tonight. You know what's funny is I have a boom stand that I could have just easily...
You just pull it, yank it towards you.
Right toward
Yeah.
me. Yeah, you know what? But, I leave all the smarting to Matt and Barker. So I do. So here's what I want to plug. I actually want to plug Matt Click and Barker's Patreon, because I'm a patron for both of them. So what you need to do is check them out, because what Matt was talking about was the Mecha Hack. So if you want to see some Mecha Hack preview stuff, Matt has been releasing that consistently, as well as other streams and really cool stuff. And Barker does soup shots as shout outs for his patrons. If he really likes you, he will slam soup for you.
He'll drink a mug of soup in your honor.
That is not fiction.
Soup drink.
I think that has to be a mainstay on the Patreon. But both of them have the things that you need to be inspired to make these kinds of games. So if you love how Matt DMs, go get his stuff that he makes, because it's going to help you DM in his style. And if you love the way Barker role plays and comes up with stuff on the fly, go get his stuff, because it's going to help you do that and make your own stuff. So that's my plug, is give these guys your money, because it won't be better spent other places. So I can't wait till next month. And I'm really, really excited to maybe at some point soon get a long rest in for the love of Edric.
Nope.
So that's it.
Ain't no
Someone in the
rest
chat
for
just called it the
wicked.
soup salute.
The soup
Soup salute.
Hey, back to you, Matt, if you can hear me.
Hey, thanks, Tim. I appreciate it.
You got
The
it,
voice
buddy.
reverberated from across Aeronoth. Through the winds of Verglas,
Right.
Tim's voice met with Matt's and
From
twirled
the
together
throat.
in a whirlpool of joy and love.
created an air
happiness.
elemental, and it totally trounced Tim's ass.
Iridos became a flat wasteland of Tim's ass. Left over behind the tempest was a single figure. Rule breaker.
Porch scorching on Halloweenies, baby. We're going to eat expired candy next month on stream and do shots of soup. So definitely tune in for that one. Provokers is going to be off the Halloween chain. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next month. And take care. Happy gaming all. And may all your pizzas be both hot and ready. Bye! Okay.